Paul, a mechanic, is video chatting with his daughter Beth, catching up with her on school. Beth seems stressed and distracted but swears she is fine. In the background, Paul overhears a man cursing at her but she plays it off as nothing. Paul is concerned and the two make plans for her coming back home after her finals before they end the call. The next morning, Paul picks up the mail and finds a letter from Beth's school, indicating that she has not paid tuition in a long time. He tries to call her to get answers, however he sees a stranger answer her phone. He asks for Beth but the man simply laughs and ends the call. He tries calling back but gets no response. Now very concerned about his daughter, he leaves a message on her cell asking her to give him a call. He then reaches out to the school and learns that her dorm room has been empty for a while. Instead of calling the police, Paul takes a flight to where Beth stays, to personally investigate his daughter's disappearance. There is no answer at the door, so he breaks in to find the place empty, seemingly abandoned for a long time. He looks around and finds a picture of Beth and another girl whom he assumes to be her friend, then heads to a local bar where most young people hang out. He asks the bartender but she has no clue as to who the girls are. Paul decides to wait there for a while until he sees the young woman walk in with her date. He interrupts her introducing himself as Beth's father, but the young woman refuses to tell him anything. Paul then gets into a little tussle with guys in the bar after being insistent, so the girl decides to hear him out, if he buys her food, women. She introduces herself as Angela and tries to avoid giving a direct answer but with Paul's insistence, she reveals that Beth met a guy named Eddie in New Orleans and got involved with some bad people. Paul wants to go right now and offers her $500 to bring him to Eddie. The next morning the two are on the road. Angela wonders why he would not call the police, but Eddie explains that cops would not act until 48 hours. After stopping to get gas, the two make it to New Orleans to the spot where Angela met Eddie. Paul warns her to keep her distance from him, hinting that he is known in the city. He heads inside the building first, which turns out to be a club. Angela heads to the bathroom and inhales some bad substance and heads to the dance floor. Instead of pointing out Eddie, she tries to give Paul a lap dance wanting to have fun. Paul has no time to mess around and leaves. Outside, Angela spots one of Eddie's friends, so Paul goes over to ask for Eddie's location. The man refuses and they attack Paul, knocking him to the ground. The guys prepare to leave, but Paul stands and begins to viciously beat the man and his two friends. He takes one of their cell phones and jumps back in the car, with Angela shocked at what she just witnessed. Paul has Angela send a text to Eddie from the phone and they crash at a run-down motel until they hear back from him. Angela wants to know who Paul is, noting how he beat the guys, doesn't want to go to the cops and gets an off-the-books motel. Paul refuses to answer and tells her to get some rest. Meanwhile he is consumed with thoughts of his daughter and her well-being. He decides to wash up and Angela sees his large eagle tattoo on his back, with bullet wounds all over his body. She sees a tattoo of his wife's name and learns that she died from leukemia. They get a reply from Eddie, who is at a club nearby. Angela points him out inside the bar, so Paul hands her the money and tells her to leave. He heads inside where he is spotted by a man who knows him. He finds Eddie and asks him about Beth but Eddie denies knowing her. He tries to disrespect Beth but Paul warns him to tread carefully. The man then comes over, revealing himself to be Eddie's uncle Stuart. He apologizes to Paul on behalf of Eddie, asking him to spare him. Eddie then realizes how deep in crap he is. Stuart reveals that he was a part of an 8-man team that was taken down single-handedly by Paul, who somehow spared him. Paul, who had been drinking water all along, reveals that back then he used to drink, as he is taking a sip of alcohol. Eddie then confesses that he used to date Beth, who got herself involved with a dealer nicknamed the Pharmacy, and gives Paul the location. Before Paul leaves, he grimly tells Stuart that he ran out of ammo that night they tried to attack him. He heads outside to see Angela still there and they leave together. They are being trailed by two thugs, who reach out to a local crime boss named Omar, confirming that they are trailing Paul. Omar wants them to capture him and bring him there, and his assistant Mark tries convincing him to let Paul go, but Omar is out for revenge. The thugs begin shooting at Paul's car and trying to run him off the road, but after a long chase, Paul causes them to crash instead. He begins to interrogate one of the men, who reveals that Omar sent him. Paul tells the man to warn Omar to stay out of his way, then kills the driver as he lies helpless and wounded on the ground. They head back to the motel, where Angela is shocked at what she just witnessed and demands answers. Paul then reveals that he was born in this city and joined the military, but when he left, he became a hitman for Omar, but the escalating violence caused him to question his loyalty. In a flashback we see Omar with his family for his daughter's first day at school. His wife decided to take his car instead, which exploded soon after. Paul was there and witnessed it, as he had set the bomb meant for Omar, and now, Paul knows that Omar will stop at nothing to use his daughter to get to him. Knowing that Angela is also in danger, Paul reaches out to an old contact to have Angela stay with him, then brings her to a large hotel where he meets the friend Sam. Paul asks about the pharmacy and learns that he is a lunatic, but plans to deal with him. Sam gets worried and knows that this may bring trouble for him, but for old time's sake, he decides to help Paul. When Paul leaves, Angela wonders if Sam will send men to help him out, but Sam tells her Paul needs no help. He explains to her that Paul is a very dangerous man who once ran an entire territory in New Orleans under the nickname The Prince, and warns her to stay away from him. Paul heads over to a local gun shop where he flashes a tattoo on his hand, but the man pulls a weapon on him. The man had heard about that tattoo from his father and knows the man wearing them are dangerous, but Paul explains that he and his father were friends and he only wants to pick up some stuff he left with him. The man takes Paul to the back where he left a stash of guns, but they are no good, so the man gives Paul 2 of his own guns. Paul then heads over to see the pharmacy and the man at the door takes his gun. He leads Paul through a building crowded with addicts to see 50 Cent, the pharmacy. Paul warns him that he is taking Beth out of his building and nothing can stop him, but the pharmacy tells him Beth is there of her own will. He then reveals Beth sleeping in the room, high and strung out, and Paul rushes to her. The men then pull guns on Paul, revealing that they got a call from Omar to detain Paul and Beth. Paul suddenly disarms one thug and kills all the guys in the room. He grabs Beth and begins shooting his way out. Paul gets stabbed, but does not slow down until he brings Beth back to the car and speeds away. Later, Mark comes by the building where one man lay dying. He asks for Paul, but the man can give him no answers and gets shot dead. Paul gets back to Sam's hotel where he patches himself up. Sam reveals that his name has caused a stir in the streets, so working on their getaway car is taking some time. Mark gets news of Paul at the hotel and knows that Sam is hiding them, so Omar mobilizes all his men. Paul goes to see Beth, who is ashamed to return home, but Paul tells her that he loves her just the same. We then see a convoy of cars pull up to the hotel with Mark and his men getting out and surrounding the building. Meanwhile, Paul puts Angela on the first right away, as he cannot protect both her and Beth at the same time. Once Mark and his men take up their positions, he gives the order and men outside open fire on Paul and Sam. They both return fire and are able to kill the men. However, while they are distracted, Mark kills Sam's men inside and grabs Beth. Paul hears the gunshots inside and rush in, but is held down by gunfire. Paul and Sam then move in and kill the shooter before giving chase. He catches up with Mark and a shootout ensues, but Mark is able to get away with Beth. After they kill the men, they realize that Angela's driver was shot dead, so he takes Angela and they head back over to the gun store, where the man gives Paul some high-powered rifles. Mark drags Beth before Omar, who tries talking to her about her father, but she is having withdrawal and just wants to go home. Paul then pulls up to Omar's business fully armed and ready for war. He begins tearing up the place with bullets and killing every man he sees. Omar gets the news and grabs his gun and takes Beth with him. Paul is a one-man army and his skills are unmatched as he clears every floor. He then sees Omar, holding a gun to Beth's head. He offers to let Omar live if he gives up Beth. Omar demands to know why Paul murdered his family and threatens to kill Beth in retaliation. Paul says that they were simply collateral damage, but Omar is ready to end her life and leaves. Paul is then attacked by Mark and the two begin to trade blows. Mark is beating Paul down with his martial arts, so Paul throws him off and grabs a gun and shoots him dead. Omar then steps out holding Beth at gunpoint, wanting his revenge. Beth suddenly elbows him in the stomach and Paul uses the chance to shoot Omar dead. Beth rushes to her father and realizes that he has been shot and helps him stand. Outside, Angela runs to embrace them and the three leave together. Remember to turn on notifications, so you can watch more movie recaps like this. Thanks for watching.